Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have Michelle Lindo Rice on my channel today. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, tell us a little about yourself.
So you may see on my screen that my name is Michelle Jackson right in there. So a newlywed, but I started off about 2012 publishing my first book with Urban Christian, which is a division of Kensington Books. And I started off, I do have a print copy right next to me of the first book that I published. And that was, let's see if I'm holding it right. That was Sing a New Song. And that was one of 5 books that I published with Urban Christian. And I'm what you would call a hybrid author, in that I was publishing with a major publishing company, but also I was self-publishing some books. And so one of the first books that I actually self-published was this little reader here, Colorblind. And I was inspired to write some interracial romances because at that time I lived in Port Charlotte, Florida, and there were a lot of interracial couples, but definitely a lot of issues with racism. And so I was inspired to write this book, Colorblind. So I have, if I remember right, I have approximately 16 books now. My last 2 books were my first venture into writing with another author. And so I co-authored 2 books with Michelle Stimson. And many of you might know her from her Mama B series and also her Boys Brown. So this is one of the books in paperback, Small Town Love, that I wrote with Michelle Stimson. We recently had a newer release, Small Town Faith, that just came out June 30th, 2020. So yeah, so I'm married. I have 2 biological sons and lots of and well, I'll say 3 stepdaughters and 1 stepson. So there's yeah. So currently, and I actually, from my first marriage, I have 3 stepdaughters there too. So that's when I say lots of children. That's what I'm talking about. Those.
Okay. Tell us about the 4 F's.
Yes, so I write fiction centered around the 4 F words, and it's, let's see if I can remember them now. It's family, faith, friendship, and one more. And forgiveness.
Yes. Right.
So so most of if not all of my books have an element of forgiveness that's needed. So that's how I that's a theme that I came up, that I've crafted that. And I always forget the word forgiveness, but it's crafted around those F words. And so, you know, we know another F word, but these are some great F words that we encounter when reading Christian fiction.
Okay. Now let's talk about your books. You can tell each one, and then you can read snippets from some.
Okay. I didn't hear you fully. I just heard read snippets. What did you say before that? I'm so sorry.
I said we could talk about your books. You could tell us about all your books.
Okay.
And snippets from them.
Okay. All right. So I moved not too long ago, so I'm sharing the paperbacks of the ones that I have on hand. So I already shared a little bit about, I already shared the first book that I published, which was Sing a New Song. And the tagline for this is basically, if you found out that you were dying, would you confess all of your past sins? And in this book, we meet Tiffany Knightley, and she's a renowned singer, and she has a beautiful daughter, Carly. And so, but she has 5 potential fathers. And so she had to search to find her daughter's father when she found out that she was dying. And so that's kind of, this was the first one. And to my surprise, a lot of readers fell in love with Carly. And because they fell in love with Carly, and I want to tell you about the importance of readers and how they can influence authors. At some point later on, I wrote book two, My Soul Then Sings. And then it became a series, the Song of the Heart series. And so this was not planned, but this was based on readers that so many people reached out to me and said, I want to know what happens next with Carly. And I remember my editor at the time at Urban Christian, Joylyn Ross, which many people know as the author E. and Joy. When she read this, she goes, this was a crazy, crazy read. But it was so much fun to write Carly and Jamal's story. I won't tell too much, but basically this was asking really, can friends really be platonic? And also, again, dealing with things, this also delved in Carly's father and a potential secret that he may have been holding. So this was book two in that series. I did went ahead and published book three, A Reason to Sing, and I don't have that paperback on hand. I'd have to go searching through some boxes, so I apologize. And so that was then finally Ryan's story, who we had met already through book one and through book two, that was covered in A Reason to Sing. But I think one of the series that I was well known for, and I only have two books to show, but it's a 3-book series. The first book was Walk a Straight Line, and this is when people met and fell in love with the story of Gina and Keith. And it started with, I'm going to use that word that Jada introduced us to, an entanglement with Gina, Michael, and Keith here. So it was a story about 2 friends, 2 brothers, 2 weddings, and too many secrets. And so in the start of this, this then led to book 2. And I'm going to tell you guys this. I do not have a copy of book 2, which is My Steps Are Ordered. It's such a beautiful cover. And if you look at it on Amazon, you see where she's in a bridal gown. And this continues Gina and Keith's story. And I was at an event and it was my personal copy. I think I like to keep 1 or 2 for myself, but a reader came over and she convinced me to sell it, and my publisher does not have any more copies for me. So I need to get a copy of book 2, My Steps Are Ordered. And then finally, it ends with book 3, which so many men have written to me about, that they really love this story, The Fall of the Prodigal. And this was the final story in the series, and it was about a condemned man, his 2 brides, and 1 untimely death. So this, I think, I'll say, had a little bit of suspense in it. So that's a little bit of some of my published work with Urban Christian. In Colorblind, basically, I talked quickly about this, that this was the Able to Love series. And in each of the 3 of these books in this series, one of the characters had a disability of some sort. So in this one, we had Saul Sweeterman, and he was blind. And it was definitely based off the story of Saul on the road to Damascus and Ananias in the Bible. So it was a nice short read, but to my surprise, even to this day, a lot of people love this story. And so this was a part of the Able to Love series. The other 2 books in that series are Silent Praise, and which I think was a really emotional read. I'd have to pull up a print. I can pull up my version here and read a little from that, but that was definitely a very emotional, strong read. And it featured Melanie, a character who was deaf, and so our partial well, deaf. She was fully deaf. Yeah. So it featured her, and so that was a piece of it. And the Able to Love series really was near and dear to my heart because in my life, other life, I'm an educator. I've been a teacher in education for over 20 years. And so I worked with special education students. And with those special education students, um, they were capable of so much more than you would think that they were. And they were near and dear to my heart. And so that's why I called it the Able to Love series, because no disability can stand in your way of finding true love. And then I had started this one. This was based off an article that I read, um, the headline of this man who, so it's a pull from the headline story. He basically was um, broken up with, and his fiance broke off things with him, but he had tickets somewhere, so he posted for someone with the same name to come and travel with him, and they did travel quite a few countries. So this was kind of a spin-off on that, and the tagline for this is "A good girl needs a stand-in, will the bad boy gets the chance." And this is definitely a fun read, a love story that's really modern in terms of a lot of it take place through internet, and we know in this time now that we're in that this is how people are most likely quote unquote dating, and so they met online first and they connected online. So this was the idea behind the resolution. And then
And that's the author on the cover.
this is actually a reviewer and blogger. And
Oh,
what
okay.
is funny is that Tiffany Tyler, she reviews, and I actually, it was just something that happened spontaneously where it was a picture that she posted, and I was like, oh my Lord, this picture inspired me. Sometimes you get inspiration from articles, from pictures or whatever. I was like, I'm going to write a story on this fun, quirky person. And I've never met her in person, but it just still inspired the cover for this read. And then the other one that I have here that I can share is, oops, make sure I'm in the camera, is A Piece of the Pie. And if you notice, this says Sweet and Spicy, book 1. I am going to tell you guys that I have not yet written book 2 or 3. And so many people are asking for this book 2 and 3. And this I took a chance because I write in a Christian fiction genre, and it's romances a lot. Um, and there's always what should and should not be included in Christian fiction romances. And so this was, I would say, a little spicier, edgier read because it featured a married couple. So many people, they liked it, but they also said, wow, this was a little bit spicy. Thus the title, Sweet and Spicy. It's sweet because it's a Christian read, but it's definitely a little bit more on the spicy side.
Okay.
So that's a little bit about my books.
Okay, which one would you like to read from?
Okay, so, all right, since I'm holding this one in my hand, I'm going to read from chapter 1 of The Piece of the Pie. And then if time permits, I definitely want to advertise Small Town Love and Small Town Faith, because this is the Lovetown series, and it takes place in Lovetown, Texas, which is a made-up town. And it's, of course, a small town romance. And both of the covers in these books actually have some really nice hunky dudes on the cover, which I can appreciate. And I think my readers will as well.
Yes.
So Michelle and I, and actually we chose the young men, but my husband actually designed the covers on these 2 books, Small Town Love and Small Town Faith. So John, he designed these books for me. So, I'm hoping I'm planning to be at the Christian Book Lovers Retreat in 2021. Hopefully, it'll be in person. And he will be, yeah, Queenie's clapping. Yeah, I'm planning to go. The issue is that the date that is held in June, I tend to travel out for my job. So
Oh,
that's why I wasn't coming. But I'm still committed, even though I most likely will be traveling for my job during that time. We don't know what the time will be, but if I am, I'm still gonna make a commitment to come, and my husband will be coming with me. So he does not like Facebook or the spotlight at all, but hey, maybe you might can get him to autograph this since he did design it.
yes.
I'll see if he'll sit next to me and autograph those. He probably won't, but I'll see what I can do. So right now I'm gonna read from A Piece of the Pie. And this is about Pumpkin Reynolds. Yes, her name is Pumpkin. And she's enjoying success as a model. And she's a business owner and she's a devoted wife. And then things fall apart. And then we meet her mom as well, which is Evelyn Evie Burkett. And she's a spoiled teenager. So she was a teenage mom when she had Pumpkin and she took off. And so this is really like a reunion story between Evie and her mom. And so the idea behind this series, the Sweet and Spicy series, honestly, were marriage and moms and a little bit of mayhem. So that was the tone of, that should be the tone. And I promise I will get around to writing those other two. I was even talking to John about it, that I'm gonna write them. They just not be as long stories, so there might be a little bit shorter reads. But I need to finish what I started.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm going to read from chapter 1 of A Piece of the Pie. And it starts off with back then. So this is just chapter 1. It's a little bit of a backstory.
Okay.
Everybody on the block wanted a piece of Evie. At the ripe age of 14, Evie Burkett was well versed in pleasing men. She'd had her first experience when she was 12 with an 18-year-old Lamont Bell. As long as Evie lived, she'd never forget Lamont's face or name. He had seemed so nice when he'd invited her to hang with him at his house, but she wouldn't think about that now. Evie focused on the boy standing before her in her bedroom. She placed his hand under her shirt. "Do you want to see them?" she whispered. The boy's hazel eyes widened and he nodded. Evie pursed her lips to keep from laughing at the youth. He looked like a puppy dog. She granted his wish. The boy released a long groan, closed his eyes, and shuddered. Evie undid her bun so her hair would fall around her shoulders and then sat on her twin-sized bed. She stretched across the bed and posed seductively, ignoring the creaks and groans it made. Her bed had seen many other moments like this. His eyes bulged and she smiled. "What's your name again?" Evie asked. "I need to know your name before I give you some." Garvin, the boy sputtered. His face was beet red. Oh, yeah. She had asked him his name earlier, but she'd forgotten. Evie stood and slipped out of her clothes. Garvin's eyes zeroed in on what she had on display. He released small, harried gasps. Goodness, he'd better not have a heart attack. Evie tilted her head and asked, "If I give you some of this, what will I get in return?" Garvin's brows furrowed. Huh? Evie felt blessed because of her generous proportions. While her friends were busy begging their parents for money and treats, Evie never had to ask her mother for a thing. Men gave her money, clothes, and shoes, anything she wanted. All she had to do was give them a taste of her honey juice in return. Now, Evie was no fool. She hid most of the stuff she got from her mother. Every morning, Evie left the house looking like an angel. She changed as soon as she got off the school bus. In less than 5 minutes, Evie transformed from frumpy church girl to the hottest chick in the 8th grade. Her mother got home after Evie every day, so Evie only needed her charade in the mornings. Bertie Burkett was a single mother who worked as a cashier during the day and went to nursing school at night. When she wasn't at school, Bertie was at church. Evie was left on her own a lot of the time, which was just fine by her. Evie sat up. You think I'm not worth anything? No, Garvin shot out. He jammed his hands into his pants pockets to see what he could find. Evie watched him patiently, but she knew what she wanted. It was dangling around Garvin's neck. Evie had seen him walk by her house with the gold chain. She decided she wanted it. Her mother had attended church, every church service since she became a Christian 4 years ago. Evie was not the least bit interested in God. As far as she saw, God couldn't do anything for her that she couldn't do herself. Since it was Tuesday night, Evie pretended she was sick. Once her mother had left for Bible study, Evie had lured Garvin into her house. I don't have anything, Garvin yelled. Evie shook her head and reached for her plaid skirt. Come on, Garvin pleaded. Like an Academy Award winning actress, Evie pinned her gaze on the chain. Garvin looked down. He grasped the metal in his hand and shook his head. My father gave me this. Evie held out her hands. She kept them outstretched until Garvin undid the clasp. His hand shook when he dropped the chain into her hand. Good. Now get undressed. Evie placed the chain on the nightstand and opened the drawer. She retrieved a condom from the middle of her diary. Put this on, she commanded, handing it to him. She rolled her eyes when Garvin struggled to get it on. This is why she didn't deal with amateurs. Once he was ready, she patted the bed next to her. He sat down and she kissed him. Garvin was eager with awkward hands. She bit back the bile rising in her throat and lay on the bed. If she hadn't eyed the chain sparkling in the evening light, she would have kicked him out already. Seconds later, he was done. Really? You retard, Evie yelled. Get your clothes on and get out. She pointed to the clock. My boyfriend's coming and you'd better be gone or else he'll kill you. Boyfriend? Garvin squeaked. Yeah, Evie sneered. Big Will's a real man, and if he comes over here and sees you, he'll surely shoot you. Garvin needed no further encouragement. He knew who Big Will was. He dressed and almost fell running down the stairs to leave her house. Once she heard the door slam, Evie moved into motion. She tore the sheets off the bed and put them in the wash. Then she took a speedy, wash the important stuff kind of shower. Evie remade the bed with clean sheets, and then the doorbell rang. She raced down the stairs and opened the door. Big Will entered her house and headed up to her room. He was almost 6 feet and had the physique of a bodybuilder. Evie hadn't even bothered to get dressed. She knew why he was here. He came over every other Tuesday night. Big Will eyed the piece of jewelry on her nightstand and without missing a beat, reached out and grabbed it. This for me? Yes! He kissed her long and hard. Evie took all of what he had to offer. She hoped it happened this time. She wanted to have Big Will's baby. Evie wanted that more than anything. Having a baby would be the sure way to keep Big Will in her life. Out of all the boys she'd been with, Big Will was the only one who meant anything to her. She felt protected, important. So many girls wanted him, yet he'd chosen her. Evie decided she'd move in with him as soon as she turned 16. The only way he'd let her come any sooner was if she got pregnant. When Big Will left, Evie fell asleep with stars in her eyes. She touched her stomach and sighed. She had a good feeling this time. By the end of the year, she'd have a baby and she'd have Big Will. So that was chapter 1 of a piece of the pie. And you can see it did start out a little bit more edgy and spicy than your typical Christian fiction read.
Okay, what inspires you to write?
Well, truthfully, I've always been an avid reader, and I'm still that reader. I was that kid that went to the library one day and left with a stack of books this high, and then came back the next day to return them and get another stack. So I can read books, several books in a day. If I had that luxury now, I don't, but I can. So I was that person, always been an avid reader. But then when I was in my late 20s, by then I was married and I had my two sons, and I was going through so much. I was in a lot of pain because my marriage at that time wasn't what I thought it would be. And so I was a child of God. I wasn't, quote unquote, running the streets or doing anything like that. So for me, I started writing as a means of coping and dealing with whatever I was going through during that time. And so it became a great release, a great therapy, so to speak, just writing. And then but at that time I hadn't taken any writing classes, so I didn't know anything about the art of writing or the craft that goes into writing. I just wrote my stories. And so even Sing a New Song and Walk a Straight Line, those were written during that time, years and years ago. But it wasn't until my passion, that's one of the things that I write on my website as well. You know, when my passion finally I learned with my purpose, then I was about close to 40 before I got my first book published. And so but I was writing stories from then. But that's kind of what led me there, is that I wanted a healthy outlet and release. You know, the boys would be in bed, I'd be on my own for hours. I'm like, okay, you know. And at that time I didn't watch TV like I do now. I mean, there was no Netflix like there was now, and Hulu. So I started writing, and that's how I got into writing, actually.
Okay. What's your favorite part in Small Town Love?
Hmm. Oh boy, Queenie. What's my favorite part? I'd definitely say, let's see, because it was filled with a lot of fun times in there. So I had like little snippets. Like my all-time favorite part, of course, is when she realizes the truth behind Sean's secret, and Mr. Henderson lets that out of the bag, how it really happened. And she goes right there to talk to him, and you know, he quote unquote plays that hard to get, but he was really hurting. So I really enjoyed that piece. But because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who has not read it, that really was a fun piece. There was also the very beginning when he first sees her after those years of coming into town, and he goes, goodness, she sure was wearing those jeans. An old song, Flow Riders Low, played in my mind. I close my eyes and will the image of Naya's luscious behind away. It wasn't easy. I was a saved man, but I wasn't blind. So those little fun parts are what I enjoy.
Who was your favorite character in all of your books? Who will be your favorite character?
You mean out of all of the books?
Yes.
Or in each? Oh, out of all the books. Wow. I'm gonna say off the top of my head. Man, there's things that I love about each of them. But definitely to go way back into the On the Right Path series, I really enjoyed writing Keith. I thought he was a strong character, and so many women were quote unquote in love with Keith, but they were like, we need a real man like that to appear out of the books. So I think he was one of my favorites. But I also like writing the snappy characters. So like Pumpkin's mom Evie was fun to write. And oh boy, and even in Walk a Straight Line, Terrence's mom Francine, she was something else, but that was fun to write. And My Soul Then Sings was really a lot of fun to write with Carly and Jamal. I really loved Jamal's character and what he went through, because he had psoriasis. So I guess I'm going to say Queenie. The short version is there's pieces of each character that I write. One of the things sometimes when you're writing is it's not really people you know, but it might be close to people you know and characters that you know, or personality types that you might know. So there's just a little piece to love, I hope, in each of the characters.
Okay. What is the significance of the title for the Love Town series?
So the Love Town series, as I mentioned before, that Love Town was made up, but Small Town Love and Small Town Hope. I came up with those titles because we knew we wanted to do something with a small town, but we didn't want like, I guess a title that everybody has probably heard before. And so that's kind of how we came up with, and we knew that this book would focus on Sean's love for Janiyah. And then in Small Town Faith, we knew it was about Travis discovering his faith in God and then showing Jazzy that same faith, to have that same faith in God, to work things out that she didn't think could have worked out. So that's kind of the thought behind those two titles, actually.
Has anything ever happened to you similarly to what happened in any of your books?
No, thank goodness. No. Like I said, some of the storylines might be inspired by a poem, a feeling, a show I watch. Just talking through plot lines and scenarios. So, like for instance, right now I'm starting a romance that I want to write, and in looking at some of the common tropes in romance novels, whether it be Cinderella or runaway brides or whatever. So just looking at those tropes and putting it in mind, something that I watch or a movie that I really love and enjoy, might give me some ideas. Reading a lot as well give me a lot of ideas. And then it's just, plotting and crafting the story after that. But no, I've never, to my knowledge, that I'm thinking, I haven't had it. Yeah, no, I didn't have a Keith in my life.
Did any of the characters remind you of yourself or someone you know, and how?
No, I think they're like maybe a hybrid, or like, for want of a better word, Frankenstein was made up of different pieces. So it's like a build of different people and different circumstances. Like, sometimes I don't realize the similarities until I'm done and I start thinking about it. But if I know of someone that went through a situation, like for instance, I know someone very, very close to me that went through postpartum depression and going through, and is coming through it finally, thank the Lord. And so in a book that's not published, The Replacement Child, I did go into that storyline. And so I'll interview that person and talk to them, and probably get just a feel of it, and make sure that I have a feel of that character. But as much as possible, I do try not to like, oh, I saw this happen and I'm gonna put it in this book. There is one time where I did that, and that was in sing a new song. And it was while I was rewriting it. And I can't remember if it was myself or someone I know that fell down the stairs. And it was hilarious, something that happened. And so I wrote a scene where Myra fell down the stairs. And then my stepdaughter had gotten her some work done, dental work done, and she came out of the anesthesia being so funny. And so that inspired the scene in the book, The Replacement Child, where he comes out of anesthesia and he's funny. So yeah, I'll say I'll take like little snippets and pieces, but to say that it's based off someone's life, yeah, no.
You talking about the scene where he says everything beautiful?
Yes. My husband was telling me about it, and he goes, she kept saying, everybody's beautiful. And I was like, did you tape it? He said, no. And I was like, I needed to have seen that. So it just inspired that. So, you know, it's so like I said, sometimes it's hearing a story or hearing something, and while you're writing, it may come to you. And that book is so heavy that I was like, I really hope that that stays in there. It was just a little bit of humor.
What is the overall take away from your books?
I think for me, I try to write, you know, again, centered around those 4 F words, but definitely the takeaway for me is that there's always a second chance. You know, and I firmly believe that as long as you are breathing and you're on this side of the earth, you have a second chance. You have a chance to mend friendships, mend relationships. You have a chance to get things right with God if you need to. I mean, there are times where something might just be over because, hey, it's that friendship or that relationship has served this purpose. But as long as you have family, you're going to have family of all kinds, all sorts, all kind of dysfunction that is in every single family. But at the end of the day, if they're your family, you have to learn to love them, and you have to learn how to craft those relationships. So that's kind of the takeaway. The overall takeaway is that there's always hope. Nothing is ever just completely done or finished. And I like for readers to see some hope.
Okay. What has been the greatest accomplishment as an author so far?
I'm gonna say hands down, the readers. I've met such wonderful readers that, and it's such a surprise to me when they're like, I can't wait for your next book, or I'm gonna read your next book, you know, because you're writing and you go through all sorts of thought patterns. And so to have people that connect with what you read and say, wow, I really love this, it does motivate you and it does inspire you. So that is the best part ever of going to author events and having readers come up to you to hug you and talk to you and, you know, just support you. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And you know, I've gone to, not a lot, but I've gone to enough. And I remember I did one in Texas, and I remember this reader came with her mom and her baby, and we're Facebook friends, of course, and she knew I'll be, and she lived in Texas, and she drove, it wasn't like an hour, I think it was 2-3 hours, it was hours to come. And she's like, I came to see you guys and to meet you all. And it's just amazing how readers can really be motivated. They're really the heart of an author. Yes, you write the story that you want to tell, but then you also want others to read it and appreciate it. So that means a lot to me, and it's one of the reasons why I got back into writing, because there was a time where I felt like, man, it doesn't pay the way that you would think it would, and it's a lot of your heart and soul in it, and it takes a lot of time. I mean, when you're sitting writing, you're gaining weight, you're not exercising, you're, you know, well, I'm not, because there are some authors who are. So I'm sitting writing, other things suffer, you know, you're not you're not spending time with your family, you know what I mean? You're not cooking dinner, you're writing. And it's hours and hours out of your labor, and you know, sometimes the dollar equivalent does not add up to what you invest. But Jacqueline Thomas and a few others said, you know, if you write and somebody is drawn to God, it's worth all the sacrifice. And so the readers are, again, the reason why I'm back. Yeah.
I'm glad you're back, because I got to say this. You
say it.
I already know it. You already know it. You are my favorite author.
I know. I can't believe that, Queenie. I can't believe you told me that.
Every time you drop a book, it's like, oh gosh, she dropped the book. She dropped the book. I got to get the money some kind of way. I got to get the money. I let this go. I got to get the book. Every time you drop a book, I'm like going berserk.
Thank you, Queenie. Which is why I try to give you advance read so you don't have to go through all of that.
And everybody in my family know who you are. I'm telling you.
What?
Know exactly who you are. And if I didn't say thank you for last year for my birthday present, thank you.
Oh my gosh, you remember that?
You should see the video. I was in tears. So many people had sent me. My brother had just.
Yes.
I didn't have a clue, but I was so shocked at who all he went to and gave me gifts.
And I was one of them. I wondered about that. I said, did she ever see mine?
Yeah, I got it. But okay, next question.
All right.
What are you currently reading?
Okay, so I also read for NetGalley and review books. So I may mention a book that people may not think it's out yet. So I finished Rashonda's The Stolen Daughter. I read a little bit of Karma by Rashonda. I read A Winning Season by Rochelle Ayers. Oh boy, what's the one I'm reading right now? Oh gosh, hang on, I gotta look. So I have I'm reading one, Someone's Listening. So I read like women's fiction as well. And there's another one I plan to read, Lies. These are books that I'll read and review. You know, I enjoyed Rashonda's books, The Stolen Daughter and a little bit of Karma. They were really good. And then, you know, I Victoria Christopher Murray is one of my favorite authors. I'm a huge fan, and I also read Tiffany Warren. I read Rhonda McKnight. I mean, of course, Michelle Stimpson. I mean, tons of authors. So I myself am a reader fan. So I get it. So what I'm currently reading though is Someone's Listening, and I can't remember her name. It's not someone I really know like that. You know who else I read? Jodi Picoult. You know, she had written Small Great Things, and she had this new book coming out, The Book of Two Ways. So it was a little challenging, but I read it all the way through.
I'm about to read hers, The Sister's Keeper.
Ooh.
Someone sent that to me to read as a buddy read, so we're reading that next.
Oh, that sounds good. Queenie. She also read, is it The Perfect Marriage by Jodi Picoult? That was really good too. I read that. Yeah.
So, what are you currently working on right now?
Okay, so I have an idea for a romance series, and if I'm able to do it, it should be a 7-book series. I've never done a 7-book series.
Woo! Yes.
And for this particular one though, that's kind of what Michelle Stimpson was sharing, because we're thinking and praying that we would be coming out with a book, but we each are writing some other stuff now. So I just started this romance. It's supposed to be a romance, and it's going to be about 50,000 words. So I'm looking to potentially do it for Harlequin or maybe the Love Inspired line. I'm not too sure yet if it's going to be Christian fiction or just a romance. So, but either way, I'm just writing. So that's where I am at now. My husband, he's such a great talk through. So we talk through a lot. He's really a patient man to deal with, a writer that talks about these people all the time. And so I've talked through with him. I talked through with him. So I started that. And of course, you'll most likely see it at some point what I'm working on now. So my hope is that, or even if it doesn't make it for Harlequin, maybe Entangled Publishing, or another author was talking about writing for Hallmark, So we're trying to really, and I think I've quite a few of us that really have such great readers and are learning the craft. We're really aiming to really, hey, let's get our names out there, because we should be paid like our Caucasian equivalents, and so that's really a part of our goal, is to let's try to get our names out there, while publishing seems as if they're opening their doors to us. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm working on a romance.
Okay, what about the entanglement?
No, I'm not writing. That was a joke. That was a joke. I am not writing a story on the entanglement. As a matter of fact, this other author, I can't remember who it is now, she already has a book cover with something geared towards entanglement on it. So people can go read that. Yeah, I'm not writing that.
Well, how can readers find you and your books?
Well, I am easily found on Facebook as Michelle Lindo Rice. I am also on Twitter at @mlindorice. I have my website, which was designed by my husband. He designed my whole website. You can find me at www.michelle, 2Ls, Lindo, LINDORICE, like what you eat, MichelleLindoRice.com. So that's where you can find me. I'm on Instagram, but I admit I'm not really an Instagram professional. I'm on Facebook, Michelle Lindo Rice. You can find me. I also have an author Michelle Lindo Rice page, and our email works. I do answer emails. As long as it's not spam, it makes it through to my inbox. And so I try to be as accessible as I can to readers, because the fact that they're touched by my work and reach out to me, I appreciate that. So I try to be very responsive as possible.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
Well, I'd just like to add that, first of all, thank you for reading my books, Queenie. I'm so glad that you like my work. And I did not know your whole family knows my name.
I'm telling you.
And I really hope I get the chance to meet you in person. It's so good, you know someone by name, but it's so different seeing their face and hearing their voice. So I'm really appreciative for this time where we have to talk. And so thank you for that.
All right. Well, this is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.
Bye.